next thing on the agenda. Mr. Dennis Castendike.
Don and I are good friends for like, what, about 7 years? 6?
Century, I think.
Century, okay. I remember we were both looking at the buggy whip store and trying to figure out which one was the best. Anyway, he and I are doing that class that Rob and Larry did so well for so many years at the Bear Canyon Center. We moved a little bit to North Winnebago. He's much more prolific than I am. He's written erotica, he's written mystery, he's written a lot of detective stories set right here in New Mexico. The landscape is just, with his language, is just beautiful. One of them is the Bisty country, and his descriptions are marvelous. You feel like you're there. Anyway, I'd like to announce him, and he's written, as I said, several books. I think it's 7 or so?
About 10.
About 10, okay. But he's going to read a little bit section from one of the newest, I think, right?
Yep.
Okay, Don Morgan, please. And he's writing in his own name.
I hope I can make it. I left my cane in the car.
So you're not ashamed of yourself anymore? You're writing in your own name?
I'm going to tell you about that. Can you get this thing? There we go. I've published under 2 names, Don Travis and Mark Wilder. Travis is my middle name. Wilder came from out of my head somewhere. Is this thing working?
Yeah. Just keep it close.
But since I've reached my middle years, I decided I wanted to do something under my own name. So this one that I'm reading you is the first one that I'm going to try to publish under my own name. And I'll do a prologue in the first chapter. I do a prologue on all my books. I know it's old-fashioned, but that's okay. I'm old-fashioned too. Let me get my glasses and we'll start. I call this Old Sassy Pants. Prologue. I dropped the phone into its cradle and sagged back in my chair. In the firm grip of memories triggered by the call, I scanned the teakwood desk before me and the wall-to-wall shelving across the room holding hundreds of books. Physically, I sat in the library of my Spring Hill home, but my mind had fled elsewhere, back to the momentous summer of 1955, the year I left behind a tubercular-scarred childhood and took a bold step into normalcy, you might even say into manhood. A horrific 3-month stay in the children's ward of the Chicago Municipal Tuberculosis Sanitarium when I was 6 years old had impacted my life more than I realized. Believing I could not physically compete at sports, I devoted myself to the classroom. Fortunately, my father was more perspicacious than I and yanked me out of my comfort zone. At the time, I considered his decision as punishment. But when that long ago summer was over, I recognized it for what it was, salvation. Chapter 1, the Wagonville Ranch, northern New Mexico. May 13, 1955, a red-letter date. That was the day I cast a wary glance down at the white-capped mountain to my right while taking an eastern heading to line up the single-engine Mooney M20 with a ribbon looking nothing like the 3,000-foot dirt landing strip my father insisted it was. Except for the takeoff, I piloted the entire 4.5-hour trip from Kansas City to this spot in northern New Mexico. Dad had said the Federal Aviation Administration in KC would freak out over a 15-year-old without a license turned loose on their runway. As we neared the strip, I expected him to take the controls, but he talked me through the landing, and I did okay. Maybe a little more float than usual and an extra bounce. Had the 2 people standing beside a waiting pickup seen it as a kid flying the aircraft? Following my dad's instructions, I turned the bird around and taxied back to the far end of the graded area before killing the engine and climbing out of the air-conditioned interior into hot sunlight. A muscular guy sporting a gray mustache stepped forward and addressed my father. "Well then, good to see you again. Oh, how are things going?" "Pretty good, but we need to go over a few things." Dad clapped me on the back. "This is my son, Brian. Brian meet Hope Payton. He's the foreman of the wagon wheel." The burly cowboy enveloped my outstretched hand in his own. His pump biceps reminded me of the football jerks at school who got their jollies laughing at the skinny, sick kid. I swallowed the heart in my throat and struggled to go anti-frantic. Best not to get crossways with the big daddy of my new world. I tried to put some strength behind my voice. "Mr. Payton." "Hope, everybody calls me Hope." "Yes, sir." My father looked over the man's shoulder and nodded courteously to a sturdy woman with long black hair worn in a thick braid. "Mrs. Garcia." "Mr. Temple, how was your flight?" "My son got us here all in one piece. Brian, this is Mrs. Garcia. Hope takes care of the ranch and she's in charge of the house." She smiled at me, transforming her into an attractive woman. "Nice to meet you, Brian. I hope we can make your visit to the ranch a pleasant one." For the next 30 minutes, I stood shifting my weight from one leg to the other and answering an occasional question from Mrs. Garcia, while my father and Hope Payton discussed the things the foreman didn't mention. "Garcia, is that a Mexican name?" "Maybe not." She spoke English like I did, but with a southwestern drawl. While Hope Payton heaved my 2 pieces of luggage into the back of the Ford F-100 pickup, I stood with my mouth hanging open as the little Mooney shrank to a mere dot in the sky before vanishing. I'd known my dad was leaving, but thought he'd spend a little time on the ground until I was copacetic with the situation. But after a final admonition of, "Brian, help out wherever you can," he abandoned me in the middle of frigging nowhere. This was the first time I'd set foot on the wagon wheel, the 100,000-acre ranch Dad bought several years ago. Having absolutely no aspirations to be a cowboy, I'd skillfully avoided trips west until today. Oh well, this was Friday the 13th. What else could I expect? I examined my new environment on the short drive to the ranch house. This sure wasn't Missouri. Everything was wide open spaces except for this zit of a mountain the rest of us I'd noticed before landing. It wasn't big, but it looked steep, craggy. And it had all of this white rock capping the crest. Gypsum, according to my dad. At the end of our 2-minute ride, Hope braked the truck long enough for Mrs. Garcia and me to get out. A handsome middle-aged man introduced as Mateo grabbed my baggage out of the pickup bed and stood waiting for me as I eyed the ranch house, or headquarters as Hope called it. The largest of several buildings, except for what I figured was a barn, my new home was made out of mud. When Mateo disappeared through the front door, I banged after it to keep an eye on my suitcases and found myself in a round entryway like a castle keep I'd once seen in a book on old western fortresses. The area was as big as our living room at home and soared up 2 levels. A slightly domed ceiling supported a black iron chandelier hanging from the chain. Halfway up the wide set of stairs hugging the circular wall, I paused to scan the area. Everything was nice if you liked Western or Mexican. Niches cut into the plaster held figures of saints. 10-frame mirrors and paintings of ranch scenes shared the walls with a huge rack of antlers. Cripes, was New Mexico still in the United States? I hope so. A dozen words totally exhausted my repertoire of Spanish. I dashed up the stairs before Mateo completely disappeared and trailed him down the hallway to a room at the end. Apparently this was my prison for the summer. That made Hope my warden and Mrs. Garcia my jail matron. Mateo smiled pleasantly and deposited my luggage inside the doorway before taking his leave. I dawdled over hanging up my clothes and putting away things in the room. Needed the time to fight the same panic I'd suffered 9 years ago when my parents abandoned me in a TB sanitarium, a good 500 miles from Hartford home. I was scared witness every day of those 3 miserable months. Like most kids, I had an okay relationship with my parents, but during that time, I lived with a hollow place in my chest from being separated from them. To be fair, Mom lodged at a nearby hotel and came to see me every day for an hour or 2. But the others, the hours she wasn't there, fear-filled. Fear of doctors in white coats, nurses in white uniform, pasty white kids. After all, that's what they call the disease, wasn't it? The Great White Plague. I'd never been away from home before then, except for trips with the family. Not even camping with the scouts or outings with my friends. My friends. I could count them on one finger for the next year. My dad's business partner's son, a kid my own age. Everyone else was scared I'd give him my TB, but not Dolph Mason. He wasn't afraid of anything. Home tutored throughout the 2nd grade. I returned to school for the 3rd, and for a while I became TB Brian, until Dolph put a stop to it. He protected this 97-pound weakling from bullies big and small, although I hadn't quite reached 97. Eventually, everything pretty much returned to normal, except for me. Self-conscious because I was thin and underdeveloped, I kept to myself. I'd be a hermit today if it weren't for Dolph forcing me to participate in my own life. Once everything was put away in my new pad, I sat on the edge of the bed and took stock. Spacious and primitive was the word that came to mind. Furniture was old and clunky but sturdy. My closet, a tall, ornately called armoire, reminded me of childhood's visits to my grandmother's house in St. Louis. A big window cut into the west side of the room showed the walls to the house were a whopping 18 inches thick. The broad windowsill proved a neat place to plop my butt and take in the landscape. The White Mountains sat perfectly framed in the window. At least it was something to look at besides miles and miles of miles and miles. I sighed, let's face it. The place was primitive. Excuse me. No TV in the room. Was there a set anywhere on the ranch? Oh Lord, would I miss the rest of the Davy Crockett cereal? An even more devastating thought struck. Was there an encyclopedia around? My world at this point had been public libraries and a room in our home filled top to bottom with books of every kind. What to do? Hide out in my room or have a look about? Go outside to wrestle snakes and scorpions and mountain lions? Face it, Brian, you've been abandoned in the outskirts of Hades, New Mexico. In the midst of my despair, my nose twitched from the smell of something interesting. The rich aroma drew me halfway down the staircase where I sat on a steep step to see what would happen next. What happened next was the door opened and a kid about my own age walked in. He stopped dead in his tracks when he spotted me and we took stock of one another. I envied the guy the moment I set eyes on him. Cylinder with curly black hair and Godiva chocolate eyes. He was a good-looking kid. After a moment, he smiled and stepped forward. I stood. You must be Brian, he said in a baritone that cracked a little. I'm Pablo Garcia. I walked down and accepted his hand. He had a strong grip. Hi. Garcia. Are you Mrs. Garcia's son? Guilty. She's my mom and Mateo's my daughter. Mijo, a voice called. Is that you? Mrs. Garcia entered the big foyer. Did you meet Brian? Yes, I just introduced myself. How was your day at school? Last day of the year, so it was the best one. You boys come to the kitchen. I've got some cinnamon rolls cooling. So that was the delicious aroma that pulled me out of my room. Pablo's mom sure knew how to bribe a guy. I followed the two of them into a large kitchen, which obviously served as a dining room as well. We worked on huge syrupy buns. Mrs. Garcia served on saucers while she and Pablo talked about school. Much of the conversation was in Spanish until she halted and addressed me. Do you speak Spanish, Brian? I paused long enough to say, hola, ayo, si, no. That's it. Maybe Pablo will teach you some more while you're here. I answered, tackling the button again. Things went quiet while Mrs. Garcia busied around doing kitchen-y things, and Pablo and I ate, surreptitiously studying one another from beneath lowered lashes. What did he think of the skinny city kid eating one of his mother's cinnamon buns? You ever been on a ranch before? He finally answered, nope. A small silence grew. Do you ride? A horse? Yeah, took riding lessons last year. Something happened to his face. He was probably trying to keep from laughing. Guess lessons would sound goofy to a ranch boy. Hope picked out a map for you, named some socks. Great. I'm not sure my tone matched the word. He's good now. Joe gentleman for you. I have to remember to thank Joe, whoever the hell Joe was. He fell silent, and it dawned on me I wasn't making it easy for either one of us. You know how to pattern, Ryan Kimball, so pattern. What grade you in? I asked, between bites. Be a junior next year, you, same, sports, basketball and baseball, he said. Tried football, but didn't get off. Too much like rest of the steers. You? I tennis a little, some golf, but sports not really my thing. That opened the gates, and we were soon talking like friends. I mashed the last crumbs onto my forefinger and guided them to my mouth. Pushing away the now squeaky's clean saucer, I regarded the smooth, confident guy sitting opposite me. Here was this bitchin' kid who had the lay of the land. He didn't know it yet, but he had selected the new name, Pat, and become my best friend in the entire state of Hades. We thanked Mrs. Garcia for her cinnamon buns and Mosey, and who worked for me, outside where I spotted Mateo near the corral holding the left front foot of the black horse. What do I call your dad? I asked. He introduced himself as Mateo, but if he's Mrs. Garcia's husband, everybody calls him Mateo. Then how come everyone calls your mom Mrs. Garcia? Pat answered with an elaborate shrug. Clue me. What's he doing to the horse? Shadow's a working gelding, so he's getting a new set of shoes. Dad's our blacksmith, and he takes care of the domestic animals, you know, like dairy cows and chickens. He's not a veterinarian, but he knows a lot about doctoring cattle. He's the guy who prepares the dips. Dips, I asked. You know, the baths we give the cattle to dose them for diseases. I advertise my ignorance. You give cows baths? Half a mile east of here, there's a corral with a sloping pit. Dad fills it with the medicated dips the boys run the cattle through. So we call it dipping. Your dad doesn't? I stumbled over my words. Ride the range? No, he works around the headquarters area mostly, but he rides with the crew during busy times like receiving and gathering stock. Gathering, you mean rounding up? Pat laughed. We don't call them roundups. The crew, there are more of them? Then something clicked in my brain. Oh yeah. I remember seeing a photo of some cowboys. On a ranch this size, we've got 3 riders in addition to Hope plus a cook. Your mom's not the cook. She cooks for the house, but Beans cooks for the hands. He nodded to the low building sitting across a stretch of packed ground earth from the headquarters. The crew eats there. So do I sometimes. Probably most of the time now, since I'll be drawing a wage this summer. If I can get away from Mom, that is. Get away from? He wagged his head side to side. It's a Mexican thing. Meals are a big deal. But as long as I eat supper with him, I should be okay. Mexican, aren't you? He laughed at my obvious embarrassment. Yeah, I'm American, so are my folks. We were all born on this side of the Rio Grande. Now, my grandparents, that's a different story. He pointed to a mud building not far removed from the headquarters. We lived there. His finger moved a bit to the right, and that's Holt's house. My mind raced on. You said you're going to work around the ranch this summer. Doing what? Cowboy, huh? He glanced toward the sign. It's getting about quitting time. The crew will be coming in any time now. As he spoke, 3 horsemen reached the corner of the cookhouse and moved straight for the corral beside the stable. Soon I shook hands with some cowboys named Joe, Tinker, and Charlie. None of whom seemed impressed to be